If you ever get Donna alone one day, ask her about the time she had a conversation with a guy that was trying to hack her and then asked her for a job. just put that. I'm just putting that out there. If you ever get her somewhere, ask her about it. It's a pretty funny story.
Microsoft called me.
Yeah. And then asked her for a job.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is Donna Grindle with Card and Compliance, and my co-host, which is kind of fun, is David Sims with HIPAA for MSPs. This is part 2 of the Sadie Hawkins episodes, where I am your host, and David has to tell us what he learned. How you doing, David?
I'm doing good. See, it's harder than it sounds, isn't it?
No. The hardest part is reading your script and making sure I say me first and not you.
You don't want to say you're David.
David Sims.
Yeah, do that.
And I'll say, and joining me is Donna.
Yeah.
How you doing, Donna?
That's what you usually do anyway when you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna do the for those of you who listened last week, we're gonna jump back into part 2 of the Safeguarding Health Information NIST OCR summit that I attended, because we thought we were going to get through at least day 1 of information. I think we got about halfway through day 1.
Well, that Equifax thing just really sent us on a tizzy.
Yeah, so we're gonna get through the rest of it today in some form or fashion, but
one way or the other, because we're all done with David having to do all the work here.
Yes, we are done with that.
That's the problem. I'm just telling you. I just know that's the problem.
Yeah. So anyway, got some cool stuff coming up. By the time everybody listens to this, I'll be back from DC. I think you'll be either back or gone to somewhere.
No. I will be speaking that day, in fact, at the Georgia HFMA Care Forum at Emory St. Joseph's Hospital in Sandy Springs. Even though they've gotten hit pretty hard over there from the compliments of Irma, everything should be back up and running just in time. And then I'm at the Georgia Pediatric Practice Managers Association October 13th. Their state meeting in Smyrna at Cobb Energy Center. North Metro MGMA later in October. It was the 17th. Appears now we're rearranging everything to get it to the 24th. Georgia HMA Fall Institute was the 28th. Seems like now we might be trying to make it the 9th. Georgia Association of Orthopedic Executives, November 10th. And we're getting some really cool conversations about doing some other stuff in October that we're talking to next week, and being part of the Dog and Pony Show for Cybersecurity Week in Washington State. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, shout out to George.
Hey, George.
Since you want to talk to me so bad.
I love that email.
You got to love it when people have to take a poke at me every time we get an email. I know, you started the whole thing.
Oh, you set it up. You set it up. You dish it out. Therefore, you must take it.
And I do well.
Yeah, I know. So there you go. You've earned every bit of it. And I appreciate all the support I get.
Well, it's hard to say no to somebody whose initials is GIF.
I know, really. That was pretty cool.
As a tech guy,
Yeah. You knew we were in. He saw it. He knew we would see it.
Yep.
So we've got that, and we've also got some requests for information about doing the boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
Hoorah! We're talking to folks. And again, if you want us to bring the boot camp to your area, and you'd like to talk to us about how you can help us make that happen, contact Carla Kreitner, Carla at cardandcompliance.com.
Yeah, that is with a K, by the way.
KARLA at KARDON, because I am the Don. Compliance.
Or you can just go to contact@helpmewithhipaa.com. Either way, it'll get there. But let me just tell you this. If you are interested, you better hurry because we are almost got 2018.
Yeah, 2018 is starting to get a little bit busy.
Yeah, so we've already got talks in the left coast and the right coast and somewhere out in the middle of the ocean. So
then I'm talking left coast, even up in New York and stuff for speaking things. So let us know. Get us on the calendar.
Yep.
That way we can talk about your event during all of our podcasts.
Yep.
So now, David,
yes,
get us through the rest of day 1, all of day 2, and make it sound exciting and informative.
So we're going to go through like 6 pages in about 20 minutes. So listen fast.
Dum.
So where we left off last time we were going into the NIST cyber framework part of the conference, and this is where they started talking about, guess what? New stuff coming out, first half of 2018. They're going to be releasing some more information about the cybersecurity framework. Good thing is, he did say that don't wait on the new stuff because you'll be able to kind of merge the two together. So there's no reason to wait. Go ahead and get started.
Yay.
So that's going to be good, that it's going to be able to be backwards compatible.
That works out because that's what I've been telling people to do. Don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. Please do something. Don't wait.
Don't wait. Go on now.
They went into talking about too that NIST is looking to accelerate cybersecurity learning and skills development because guess what? We don't have enough cybersecurity people in the U.S.
Oh, really?
So if you got any kids that are going off to college or whatever, you might want to push them towards cybersecurity. Lots and lots and lots of demand. I don't recall the numbers, but it was somewhere in we need like 30,000.
It's a lot, and that's more than David could comprehend. Just a lot.
Yeah, and there will be some links in the show notes too that he gave out that helps people that are looking for stuff like that. So you can check that out. One quote he did have I liked was that he said, "Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, not just the IT guys," which sounds familiar.
It does. We had a whole session on that at the boot camp called You, Me, and IT.
We did. So
it's all about us.
So as a practice manager or an end user, as we would call it in the IT world, you need to understand what your responsibility is when it comes to cybersecurity. And don't just say, hey, we've got some free antivirus on here and we've got an IT guy that comes in from time to time. Mm-hmm. No, it's everybody's responsibility. And it affects more than just your little bubble. You know, you could be the very thing that causes the exfiltration. And, it can make it bad for everybody else because all the bad things we hear about on the news about all these big ransomware things, that somewhere it started and somewhere it got out.
There's somebody to point a finger at, is what David's saying.
Yeah, you can say that. He also said that we're going to move away from, they want to move away from passwords if possible. They'd love to move toward people having badges or tokens or something like that so that we're not typing in passwords anymore, which I know a lot of people are going, yay. And then other people are going, oh my gosh, not another thing to keep up with. Because you know what will happen. It'll be like, oh, I left my badge at home. So,
hey, but well, I know you didn't because your issues, but the new iPhone 10, you just look at it and it knows you.
Did you see you didn't see it.
No.
So I'll send you a video. I might even put it in the show notes. It was hilarious. Okay. They tried to demo the facial recognition and it didn't work.
Yeah, you know what he did? He laid it down and picked up phone number 2 and it immediately recognized him.
Yeah, if it won't work, we'll just try another one. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. Epic fail. So they did say that you could use passphrases or lyrics to your favorite songs. Anything like that, it doesn't have to be now. What is it they used to do? 8 or more characters and lowercase, uppercase, special character. Now they're kind of moving away from all that, which has got some people in a tizzy. But the main thing is you want to make your passphrase as long and complicated as you can do it, but also something that you can remember. So that's not really changed.
A long sentence is something someone can remember, and it's even harder to break than these complicated ones that you can't remember now that people can do algorithms and they go, wow, who would have thunk it?
Mm-hmm. So what would get you though is when you go to create a password for something and it says, no more than 8 characters in your password. And you're like, what?
It drives me nuts.
Yeah. So kind of hard to have anything secure if you can't get
right. So it's obviously going to take a while to roll that one out, but the discussion has started. And I tried to roll something like that out on some of our stuff and it freaked people out because their little 6-character things wouldn't work. And I'm like, okay, I'll undo it. So I love it though. I'm excited. I like the information they've come up with.
So then they jumped over into ransomware and cloud computing guidance, which we've had a podcast on. And
at least one.
Yeah. And here's something else they said about the ransomware, which is it's more than just an availability issue because we've thought about, ransomware comes in, we can't get to our data. Mm-hmm. He said it's more than that. It's also a confidentiality and an integrity issue. And that's why they presume that ransomware is a breach unless you can prove through an assessment that there's a low probability of compromise.
So did they do further discussions on that concept or does everybody go, okay, we get it now?
No, they didn't go into anything in depth on that because I think a lot of people were kind of like, yeah, we've kind of heard this, but now that it's coming out of somebody's mouth, I guess we'll take the memo for what it's worth.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, they didn't. They gave some time for discussion kind of after the fact, but during it was more like information overload, kind of like how we are at the boot camp. We're talking, everybody else is like,
yeah. Gotcha.
It was similar to that. So one thing they did say too, though, is that they will ask you for your documented security risk analysis on any ransomware incidents.
Yeah, don't just say, well, we decided.
Right. So, and where that comes into effect too is if you decided for some reason not to notify people, like, because you said there was a low probability of compromise, then they want to know why you decided to say there was a low probability of compromise. So better be able to document that and prove it.
Well then.
And so they went on down to talking about through the end of July of this year, they've had about 500 plus breaches. And of those, theft and loss made 48% of that. So that's not anything new. Theft and loss has always been the number one reason why we've had breaches, and that's still there. Hacking and IT incidents are only 17%. But seems to get most of the
news.
The news, yeah. Unauthorized access and disclosures, 27%. And then improper disposal is 3%. And of course, all the improper disposal is paper.
Yeah, really? It's all paper? It's not hard drives or anything?
I'm sure they have some. So, but they did make a point in saying that, don't forget about your paper stuff because we're still seeing lots of issues with disposable paper PHI, so don't forget about that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like low-hanging fruit,
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't even be on anybody's list is all I'm saying. But
yeah, and they were talking about that they've been 25,000 plus cases resolved out of 158,000 complaints. And they expect to have 17,000 complaints by the end of the year. So as you can tell, they have a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. And that's why they have, that's why they instituted the desk audits so they could try to get through more of those than they've been doing. So lots of work that's going on here.
That's 158,000 complaints.
Yeah.
So that's what we tell people is it's not the hacking that's going to get you. It's the complaints.
Mm-hmm.
The breaches, you're going to have a theft or loss or a complaint.
Yep.
Or somebody's going to do something stupid. You've got to worry about the hacking because when those 17% do happen, they're huge. It's everything. When you're hacked, it's everything. And that's why those are so big. But the theft and loss and unauthorized disclosure and the complaints, those are usually very specific and small, but way more statistically likely to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they come in and they get their flashlights out and go look in dark places in your compliance program.
Yes. That's not where you want to be.
No.
Keep them out of your breeches.
Stay out of my breeches. I have a friend that brought me a shirt that says, "What's up, breeches?"
Yeah.
I love it.
One thing they did want to point out is that they do watch the news. So if they, hear something about the fact that you had, some type of case and they don't receive any kind of report on it, that they will be coming and talking to you.
It'll be like note to self.
Yeah. So, and then they went and talked about their cases that they investigate and how they come up with different resolutions and all that. So, the thing that they did say is that they prefer, and we talked about this last time, they prefer to achieve, corrective action and rather than fine people. And as a matter of fact, they said that, if they wanted to, they could actually fine everybody for every case. Mm-hmm. But they only fine, as far as civil money penalties, they do less than 1% of the cases actually go to civil money penalties.
It's again, that's not what's going to get you. It's the reputation issues, the lawsuits from the patients, and all of that other kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they could go after you. They choose not to participate.
So they are still seeing issues with lack of business associate agreements. Imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about that before as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a point to say that data is now worth more than the price of oil. So
really?
you want to know why? Because we heard this actually at the boot camp, and I hear it a lot too. Is why are people out there doing this? Why, if they're that talented in IT, why are they doing this? Why don't they go get a job somewhere? And the point is because they make more money doing ransomware and doing viruses and all that. I mean, it's
and they don't live here.
I know. They live in Georgia.
They don't necessarily live in the United States. You don't want them to come in here. You don't want them immigrating here. You want them to stay in their country. They stay in their country. There's no jobs. And so they're like, okay, we found a job.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle that we go through.
If you ever get Donna alone one day, ask her about the time she had a conversation with a guy that was trying to hack her and then asked her for a job. just put that. I'm just putting that out there. If you ever get her somewhere, ask her about it. It's a pretty funny story.
Microsoft called me.
Yeah. And then asked her for a job. So, anyway, yeah, good funny story. Yeah. So then they went on to talk about incomplete or inaccurate risk analysis is still a problem. And I think...
Did they go into that when they called it incomplete or inaccurate? Did they go into that further?
Mm-mm. No, they were just literally just kind of shooting down a whole list of things that they were seeing.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. So, but we talked about last week that not only are they seeing that these things are inaccurate, but there's like a small percentage of people that are actually doing it right. And we may get to that at some point in this episode. But
we must.
I'm going as fast as I can.
I know. I keep interrupting you, right? It's my fault. Go.
So it's if you don't terminate an employee access immediately upon their release, then your risk management has gone out the window, is what they said. So, and that's a problem we have, and not necessarily with clients that we have that we're doing monthly monitoring and all that on, but we do have times where a client that, just kind of a call that says you need this client, they'll call and say, oh yeah, by the way, we don't have this employee anymore. I'm like, how long have they been gone? Oh, 6 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, what? It's crazy. So you can't do that. Sometimes we pick up new clients and we always find access to ex-employees. And sometimes these employees have been gone for a decade and they still have user accounts on the servers and stuff like that. So definitely you're not doing your risk management if that's happening. Guidance for texting, we've talked about that. They said that's under a development, which we've already talked about that back when we went through the HIMSS. They're apparently still doing development on that. They talked about why encryption's not being used more often. It's kind of a mystery to them, even though it's not, quote unquote, a requirement. It's still something that you should really be using all the time. Because if your data is encrypted, then you have certain provisions that help you out on that. Yeah. They also talked a little bit too about the fact that you need to understand that if your computer is encrypted and you're using that computer, it is then in an unencrypted state. So if you get hacked or ransomware or something like that, You can't say, well, my data was encrypted, I'm all right. Because
we've tried to explain that before. Or maybe it's time to do another encryption thing or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So that was one thing that apparently it's a problem of people understanding that, because I think they're getting some, people that are not filing reports, and they're going, yeah, but we don't have to because we're encrypted. And they're going, no.
Let's explain encryption.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is they get ransomware attacks, and then they say they don't have to report them or tell the patients because they have encryption turned on.
Right.
And we both know that's wrong.
That is wrong.
That is wrong. So,
but that goes back to what we talked about too last week, which was, even though you don't need to understand the complexities of all the technical issues, you still need to understand a little bit about what it is and what it means, so that you can do your risk analysis and you can do your risk management plan and all that kind of stuff, because you need to understand that needs to be part of your risk management plan. How are you going to address things if you get ransomware or whatever on a computer, even if it's encrypted, because it's now in an open state because it's being used.
And did they say the best way to find that information out was to listen to Help Me with HIPAA?
They did. They actually mentioned us several times during the entire session. So, it was great.
And you took the bow for us, thank you.
I did. And then the next one that came up was talking about HIPAA certifications, which there again, they said they got it off one of our podcast episodes where we talked about it. But they said that there's a lot of good products and services out there, and there's probably many more bad ones. However, quote unquote, HIPAA certified is not a thing.
So OCR brought it up in their presentation.
Yes. And this is kind of one thing I liked. The FTC may investigate. Ooh. Ooh. Now, for you listeners out there, we've been poking fun at people for a long time that put HIPAA certified and HIPAA made easy, all that kind of stuff on their websites or whatever they're trying to sell. And for the most part, it's just been that. We've been poking fun. But now it looks like some people might be taking this thing a lot more seriously than we are.
Oh, well, I mean, we poke fun at it because there's nothing else we can do. But people will even say, please don't tell Donna, but this vendor says that they're HIPAA certified, but please don't tell Donna before she sees anything else.
Yep. And, another question that came up basically was somebody who asked a question about what do you do when you see these things like this, and they actually gave a website and said, if you want to file a complaint, here it is. FTC would love to know about it. So you may end up having some of the sharks turn on each other, because if I'm doing something that's, truly HIPAA compliant, I believe I'm doing the right thing. And when I see these, people out there, I started to use something else, but those people out there using HIPAA certified, I might decide to pick up the phone.
Well, yeah, it's $200 and that's all you need to do. Well, I can't make a living doing work for free. I can get tons of clients doing work for free, but I'm going to take a lot of donations. And that's a big problem is, that's too expensive. I'm going to use this one over here. And this one over here is certified.
Yes, HIPAA certified, which is not a thing. Yeah. Not a thing. OCR does not recognize any kind of certification from anybody.
And they made that clear.
Not saying that some of them aren't good products. And I agree with that. Matter of fact, Donna and I put out a certification that is for IT. But we are very upfront and clear about the fact that it's not recognized by OCR, just like all the rest of them aren't. So,
we basically say you can be certified, but it really means nothing.
No, it doesn't. Well, it means that we vetted them.
Yeah, we vetted you, and you've been able. Because the test isn't easy.
No, it's not. Most people don't get through it the first time.
I know.
I don't think anybody has. I think even you failed it the first time.
Hey, I made that.
So they talked about, too, that people are always asking for a model risk analysis. They want something to kind of base theirs off of. And the guy says, it does not exist. It's a unicorn, is what he said. There's not a model risk analysis because a risk analysis is something that has to be used in huge hospital environments and in little tiny small, private practices. And there's no way they can come up with a model that's going to fit that wide of a range.
So the cookie cutter approach.
Yeah, the templates may not be a good idea.
You think?
And we're not talking about the policies and procedures. I think sometimes those can be used, if used properly, or decent. But the risk analysis in and of itself, I mean, you have guidance on it. But as far as coming out with a model, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So if you're waiting on it to happen, not going to happen. But they are going to come out with some social media guidance, which I think a lot of people need.
Yes, that'll be awesome.
And then that was the end of that session. They jumped into a little bit about using the self-audits and the compliance tool. I'm not going to even talk about that. And the reason why I'm not is because every single person I've ever had who's ever tried to do a self-audit using a compliance tool has always looked at me and said, you've got to be out of your flipping mind if you think I can go through and use this thing.
Yeah, you're talking about the one that ONC offers.
Mm-hmm.
The little iPad one.
Yep.
It's kind of like, it asks similar things that we do, but you've got to know those answers. And without anybody to help you, that's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's hard to do. But basically, they were just trying to talk about how, you can do self-audits, but a self-audit is not a security risk analysis either. And your security risk analysis comes first. Your self-audits, are pretty much you looking at how are we doing with what we audited and our risk management plan. So it's a little different, not quite the same. And, they also talked about, too, is doing these things in smaller bits and components, and don't try to do it all at once. Same thing, that we talked about with eating an elephant way back in episode whatever. I mean, it's all this stuff is that they just took all of our episodes, 121 of them, and just created a 2-day event. So then on day 2, yes, finally, day 2. Then on day 2, they jumped into talking about how to manage the top risk in healthcare. And so some of the top risks are the fact that they are saying that there is no such thing as 100% secure. Understand that. There's also no such thing as a 0% risk. So you need to understand that. So I think some people have found that out with some of the things that have happened here in the past couple of weeks with the hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. As we're recording this, I heard this morning on the news that there was 5 or 6 people, I think, that were in a old folks' home or assisted living place or something down in Florida that died because they didn't have any heat and air, or didn't have air conditioning. And the first thing
heat's not a problem in the case.
Yeah, but the first thing I thought was, this is probably crazy, but I guess because of the job I'm in, the first thing I thought was, apparently that was not on your risk analysis.
I know, it really is.
In your risk management plan.
They had evacuated some patients that are residents or whatever the environment is, and they had evacuated some, but they hadn't been able to evacuate others, and they're doing a criminal investigation into this thing.
Yeah.
So to say, they had a hurricane plan, and guess what? It wasn't good enough.
Yep. So hopefully, I don't think they'll have much of a choice, but hopefully they'll go back and look at that. And for people that are listening that are in the Texas area, in the Florida, Georgia area, maybe somewhat into South Carolina, the hurricane Irma and Harvey are gone. Now's the time to look at it and go, okay, how did things go? How was our response to this? Did we have problems, or did things come up that we didn't think about? Because I know you mentioned that, things were crazy down in Florida, trying to get everybody ready and out the door and all this kind of stuff.
I came back and started adding stuff to our templates and our own plan immediately.
Yeah.
It's one of the things we didn't talk about before. I mean, we've always kind of mentioned it, but we never really made a focus about how much time your staff will need to deal with their own lives. Mm-hmm. So if your plan assumes that they're 100% available, then who's going to take care of their family? Mm-hmm. And so you've got to address that as part of your plan, is how are you going to make sure that your own lives are taken care of as well as the business? And it is more time consuming than you think it is.
Yeah.
I just went through putting up a bunch of hurricane shutters. They took a lot longer than one would think.
So, so we learned there's no such thing as 100% secure, which I like preaching that too, because I hate those people that go out there and go, buy this, install that, do this, and you're good to go. I'm like, no, dude.
There's nothing that makes us more nervous.
It's a moving target, and there's no way you're going to be 100% secure. No way that anything's 100 or 0% risk. Everything carries somewhat of a risk. Doesn't matter if you're in a flood zone or not. You still have a risk somewhat, maybe low, may only be 1%, but there's a risk it could flood. Just ask Noah. So, but he also said that when you're addressing risk, the size of the practice does not matter. So there again, we talked about that. When looking at risk management strategies, use what fits, what makes sense for the business needs. And I think that's where people get overwhelmed sometimes. They look at what other people are doing and they just go, oh, we can't do that, or we can't afford to do that, or that doesn't make sense for us. So don't do anything instead of trying to figure out what makes sense, what's reasonable and appropriate.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. I also said, knowing what to, I don't know what I put.
Knowing how to read David's notes.
I know. Apparently, I got crazy typing that one.
Knowing what to does not to protect doing what you know.
So basically, what I was trying to say is, what I think he was saying here is knowing what to do does not protect you, but doing what you know to do does. In other words, do the do. Hey, I was just trying to write what he was saying quickly.
All right, there you go. We'll leave that one be so that we can move on. That one could take us a while to sort out.
Basically, don't just learn what to do. In other words, don't just listen to this podcast, but put things in action. Take what we're telling you and the information we're giving you and put it into action.
Don't just go to school, listen, and then never use the tools.
Yeah, like that algebra you learned. So he also talked about many things around managing risk or low or no cost. Man, we say that all the time. He said, especially compared to the cost of not doing it. Yeah.
That is a very good point. The cost of not doing it is very expensive.
And then they jumped into the Internet of Things, which we've had a podcast on that. Basically on that, they were, really making a case about looking past what we call traditional IT assets. In other words, it's not just about the computers or the servers. In some cases, not even about the smartphones, but it's about all these other devices that you have in there, refrigerators or pumps of some sort or air conditioning units. I mean, the list can go on and on and on and on. I mean, you can even have a drink machine that's connected to the internet, but you got all these things that's connected to the internet that you need to make sure that you consider when you're doing your risk analysis and risk management plans.
The jawbone's connected to never mind.
Yeah. And it's another concern that they're having is iPhones. No, I'm just kidding. So they're concerned about using non-medical devices as medical devices, kind of like people do with iPhones, because they're, my iPhone will connect to this particular device and it'll do, all this stuff that's really cool and it's healthcare related, but it's not really meant for that because it's not a true medical device and they don't look at security that same way.
Yeah, those apps that are consumer apps have no regulations and no requirements.
Mm-hmm. And he talked about how medical device security is a patient safety issue, and he actually went into a little detail on that. But, that's kind of common sense there, that if you have a medical device that gets compromised or hacked or somebody's doing something with it, that can definitely be a problem, and it could cause somebody to lose their life.
Yeah, it's about patient care. Did they say that enough?
Well, they said it that one time, and then I called them up and was like, look, dude, trademark. And so they didn't say it anymore. But
they were making the point over and over. This is now about your patients, your members, your residents, whatever your classification, whatever part of the business you're in. It's no longer about all these other things that people have, smoke screens and stuff. Make it about the real thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think they once really mentioned compliance. It was all about security, cybersecurity, cyber hygiene, privacy, protecting patient safety, protecting patient records, providing patient care. Doing things to reduce risk in your practice, all of that. Nobody ever came out that I can remember and said anything about this is what you need to do to comply with HIPAA. It's none of that.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Thank goodness. They also went in to talking again about how there's not enough people in the marketplace for cybersecurity. So, and they talked about learning cybersecurity is part of the context of your day-to-day job. So basically saying, even if you're not the IT person, whatever you're doing day-to-day in your job, look at what you need to be doing to make sure you are maintaining a level of security when you're using technology. So there again, it's not just an IT problem.
Yeah, it's like the episode we did after HIMSS where we talked about it's time for a national culture of cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of changes. I would say it's probably going to come rolling out around 2018. So 2018 is going to just be a massive year of cybersecurity changes. That's my prediction.
Okay, you heard it here first.
I've been right so far. I said 16 was going to be the year of the breach. 17 is going to be the year of the ransomware. I've been right every time. 18 will be the year of the cybersecurity.
All right, there you go.
They also talked about when you're doing updates for your devices, the Internet of Things devices, have the device manufacturers do them. Don't try to do them yourself, and don't let your IT vendor do them. Call them and let them do them.
Or make sure your IT vendor works with the actual device vendor, at least. If they need someone physically there, have the IT people be the ones working with the device vendors.
Yep. Because you don't, me as an IT person, if I don't know what that device is doing from a software or firmware standpoint, and I go in and I just start doing Windows updates, there's no telling what might happen. All
kinds of bad things.
Yeah. Or I go in there and go, hey, there's a new update for this app, software application. Let me just do it real quick. And you just don't know. It's just not a good idea unless you have the manufacturer involved in that. Because last thing you want is some, life-saving medical device that goes haywire because you did an update.
Otherwise stated, don't let David touch life-saving devices. There you go.
Then we went on to the FTC, and they started talking about software manufacturers being misleading and deceptive, and the FTC is coming for you, is what they said.
So they were talking about eClinicalWorks, right?
That's exactly what they were talking about. They said the FTC is actually coming out with, has guidance for mobile app developers, and talked about that a little bit. So if you're developing a app, then, you need to know a little bit about it. Otherwise, it could cost you some money. And this is where, I talked about earlier, the guy stood up and said, what do we do about people who are saying or advertising that they're HIPAA compliant and they're not? And then the lady from the FTC said, if a business is claiming or advertising they're HIPAA compliant, but cannot provide adequate assurances, we want to know about it.
Yeah, and the question is adequate assurances, but
yeah. So that's kind of scary in a way. It's scary for the people that are out there doing it, because I know that I've talked to a number, and I'm sure Donna has too, number of people who say they're HIPAA compliant, and it only takes 30 seconds to figure out that it's just something they put on their website. They have no earthly idea.
And sometimes it's not a malicious thing. They honestly think they've got it covered.
Yeah.
And then they're shocked to learn that they were misinformed.
Mm-hmm. That is very true, because somebody out there, went to the HIPAA Made Easy thing and they spent $25 to watch a video and, bought the template or run a tool and printed out policy and procedures, and there they go. They got it. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked with people who, they take a position with a company and they say, well, when I came here, I kind of assumed this was happening. And as I've continued to ask questions, I've learned that's not so. But everybody thinks we're okay. I know we're not. Can you come help me tell them that?
But you got to remember too that HIPAA compliance it's not a goal. In other words, you're not going to get there. It's constantly. You can be HIPAA compliant today. You can be HIPAA compliant this morning and not that afternoon. I mean, it's kind of like saying that you're going to be secure
Yeah.
You can only be secure if you're constantly making sure that's happening. You can only be compliant if you're constantly making sure that's happening. Just like there's no 100% secure, there's no 100% compliant either.
No.
It's something you constantly have to keep working on. And I think that most businesses that I've seen, and it's a problem in the IT industry, is they look at HIPAA compliance as something that they get it done and they put it back on the shelf, and then a year later, they're going to pull that information out again and look at it again because somebody told them that, annually they need to do another risk assessment and all that. But HIPAA is not something they do from day to day. It's something they're doing once a year. That can't happen. You just can't. That's like saying, I'm going to update the antivirus on my computer once a year. Okay, that won't do you any good. So
hit on the next one I think is really good, and you're out of time. And it's really good. You're out of time. You're out of time.
No,
you're running out of time.
All right. So
hit
what do you want to do? All right, we're going to do it. So we're going to reduce the risk for small practices. So we're going to go over this a little bit. If you hang out with us, you'll get some good golden nuggets. But they talk about when you're doing your, for small provider practices, and remember this is reducing risk for small provider practices, doing a risk-based approach, which means you want to prioritize your systems and infrastructure, then understand your threats and vulnerabilities, and then look at your safeguard cost and benefits through an analysis. Then you want to mitigate. I don't know what Romania is. My notes went crazy again, but you want to either mitigate it, or you need to transfer it or accept it as far as the
mitigate, Romania, transfer, accept is exactly what his note says.
I was trying to use the text to speech, and sometimes it works, sometimes not.
Let's see. All righty then. All right. So, but what you're really saying there is figure out where your valuable stuff is, determine what really can happen to it, really bad things, which we've talked about a lot of them, and then figure out what you're going to do about those bad things that can happen to your valuable stuff. But just take the time. Don't assume. Take the time. Evaluate it. Write it down. Think about it. Ask questions. Create lists. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
There you go.
So, in keeping with protecting small practices, everybody should still be listening because it's some good stuff. Awareness and education are the most cost-effective measures. We say that all the time. Humans introduce risk, and that's sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. But the human is always the bigger problem than IT.
Yes.
You need to be improving awareness. You need to be educating your staff. You need to be making security a core value within your business. Awareness and training are cost-effective controls and help users understand risk and make sure that you do this in a cause and effect way. So in other words, if you show them that if they don't do this, then this is what's going to happen. If they do this, this is what's going to happen. Then they better understand why you're telling them, hey, you need to change your password every 90 days, or you don't need to leave your screen, turned on all the time where people can look at it, or whatever the case might be. Let them understand why you're telling them that and what the effects are.
It's more about, I have to change my password because IT says I do, or because HIPAA says I do. Mm-hmm. No, you need to change your password because you keep screwing them up. You need to change your password because you're not secure. You need to change, it's not those things. Right.
So awareness and education, and we talk about that a lot. You should be doing that. That's what this podcast is about. It is awareness and education. Then it said do regular fishing training. So make sure you go and get some worms and a pole. Take your staff out to the river.
The garden fishing trip is all about, well, never mind. Worms and a pole.
There you go. So for those of you who don't know, there are ways that you can do what's called, you can fish your end users or your employees. You can have emails that are sent to them that are fake emails and they're inert. Nothing's going to happen when they click on a link, but it will tell them, hey, you just clicked on something you shouldn't have. But it's a way for you to test your staff to make sure that they understand what they should and should not be looking for. Make sure that the cybersecurity training you're doing is actually working, because this is something that can be measured. And there again, if you want more information about doing something like that, and it's very, very cost effective. And I would even go so far as to say it's pretty cheap to have done. But especially if you're having me say that. But, reach out to Donna or Carla, ask them about the phishing trip program they have. It's a very good program. And I think you'd be very well off by doing so.
Yeah, well, let's just say the first time somebody does it in their environment, they're a little shocked with how it goes. But after we go through it a few times, you improve.
Yeah, the cool thing is you can look at where you started and then look at, 30, 60, 90 days out. And of course, you want to see that line dropping and going lower and lower and lower. But that's where you can actually prove, look, not only are we doing this training, but it works. We have documented reports and proof that we're doing it and it's working. And, it's a whole lot cheaper to do the training, to do the phishing and all that stuff. A whole lot cheaper than it is to have even one small breach.
Mm-hmm. Preach it, brother.
So another thing, make sure that you don't rely just on antivirus software. They even said that alone will not help you much, which, kind of goes into the face of what a lot of people think about antivirus software. How many times have you heard that, Donna? I got antivirus, I'm good.
Okay. I don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah. And what they were talking about is making sure that you understand the threats that are out there and how they work to a degree. There again, going back to, you don't have to understand all the tech jargon about it, but just kind of understand what the threats are, how they work. Make sure that you are filtering your traffic that comes into your network. What we call in IT world, we call it the edge. In other words, as soon as it's coming through your cable modem or whatever it is you use, the very next step to get into your building is the edge. And we want to protect that network right there, first and foremost. And we do that through using security firewalls or unified threat management devices. And they do web filtering and spam filtering and application-based filtering and intrusion prevention detection and all kind of cool things that we love to talk about. But the main thing is you can't rely just on antivirus. Just like we've talked about before, if you're trying to protect your home, chances are you don't just have one thing. You don't have one little lock on the door. You probably have maybe a screen door that might be locked as well, or you have a garage door that's locked, or you have an alarm system and or dog or a sign in the yard or, whatever. There's probably multiple things you've got going on to keep your house locked. You can fortify your door all day long, but if you're going to have the windows, open, then good analogy, right? Windows. But if you leave your windows up or leave them unlocked, then all somebody has to do is just raise the window and walk on in the house. It's the same thing with the network. Same thing. You have to protect every single point that goes to the outside, and you do that through having multiple things in your network for protection. They also talked about using an MSP, or an MSSP, which is a managed security services provider, if you can't afford somebody full-time, which most small providers aren't going to have somebody full-time on staff. So they made it a point to say, if you can't afford a full-time IT person, then use a managed service provider or a managed security service provider.
That understands HIPAA and does HIPAA compliance.
Yes.
Not one that's certified and guaranteed. And I have seen MSP say guaranteed HIPAA compliant, and nothing makes me more nervous.
Yeah. But anyway, they also talk about not only, securing the network, but make sure you secure every endpoint, which is, typically the computers or even the phones or any other devices that you have that are connected to your network. And I can say that unfortunately I've seen many times when people are securing the computers that most of the staff members are using, but there happens to be some computer somewhere in a back office that's been plugged in and hasn't had anything done to it for 5 years and no security on it. And that ends up being what, gets hacked.
Or the fish tank.
Yeah, or the fish tank that's connected to the internet. The next one I like, they said, make sure you secure the user. Don't just look at the IT stuff.
Securing the human.
Yep. So, and that's part of the phishing stuff, the training and all that. And that's what we target more so now than anything is, IT is part of our job, but the users are the other part of it. And if we can make sure that we, shore up the problems we have with the user interface, then a lot of time the IT part will pick up the rest and everything's all good, because technology can only protect you so far. Your users are really your best protection. They said make sure you protect stuff with encryption, which we talked about. Prepare for a disaster. How about that? And that was pre-hurricane information. Have a written plan. Keep a documentation safe. Make sure you have backups. Make sure you can restore from your backups, and have recovery procedures. I imagine that come out of the fact that somebody says, yes, we have backups, but no, we don't know how to get to them and make them work.
And no, we've never tested them.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I've seen that as well. Yes, we have backups, but no, we don't know how to make them function if we want to restore from them. Security must include management engagement. I like that one.
Leadership matters.
Yeah, it's got to start from the top. And, I love it when it's like, hey, come out here and let's do a talk to our staff about security. And it's like, okay, where are you going to be? Oh, I got stuff to do. No, I would not come out until you are there.
Yeah.
Then we'll do it. Security and availability must be a forethought, not an afterthought. So there again, don't think about security after something's happened. Go ahead and start thinking about it now. It's a lot cheaper and easier to deal with when there's not a crisis. When you call somebody when things are going crazy and then you want to talk about security, that's a problem.
Yeah, for those of you that live in the country, it's like getting your septic tank pumped saves you a lot. If you don't do it, eventually there will be a crisis.
He also talked about security, looking at it from a business continuity approach. So in other words, what are you going to do to keep your business going when security issues happen? Such as, what are you going to do if you have a certain system that fails or all your systems fail? What are you going to do if there's a data breach? What are you going to do if you've lost patient data? All those things you need to look at. About
and it's
how
not just for a day. Right. We're talking a week, 2 weeks, a month. What are you going to do?
Yeah. And calling your IT guy is not the what are you going to do? That might be part of what you're going to do, but what are you going to do to keep your business functioning when that happens?
Right.
I mean, I've got clients that literally, if they can't get to the internet or to their EHR application within 5 minutes or even email, they're going berserk. Like they can't function. They're having a nervous breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's 5 minutes. But I mean, honestly, I do think about it in this regard that what are you going to do if you have something that puts you down for an entire day or maybe a week? Not saying you should kick in some kind of, business continuity plan because your email's not working for 10 minutes. Don't get that crazy with it. But, you need to have, your staff needs to understand there might be times when things aren't functioning properly and they need to kind of calm down, take a Xanax, reach for the bottle they have had in the drawer, whatever they need to do, it'll be okay.
Take a chill pill.
Also, make sure you conduct a comprehensive HIPAA security risk analysis to reduce risk. We hammer on this all the time about they're not being done properly. They're not being comprehensive. They're the first step in being HIPAA compliant or getting on that train of going down the path of being HIPAA compliant. You've got to do your security risk analysis first.
Yeah, you do that wrong, and that means all of your other processes have misinformation.
Yep. So that's your foundation. So got to get that right. They said make sure too that you're using resources that you already have for privacy and security awareness. There's tons of stuff already available. You're probably already a member of some type of organization that gives you that with HIMSS or MGMA. I mean, there's tons of them out there. You probably already have access to security awareness resources, so why not utilize them? You certainly have access to this podcast, so why not utilize it? So that's all they had to say about the reducing the risk for small providers. And then they just went into talking about a little bit about the using the cybersecurity framework, and then they did an update about the OCR Phase 2 audits, which we are out of time.
We'll cover the audits in a separate discussion then.
Yep.
Because I think there's some really important stuff in there to talk about. So But next time we'll be over Sadie Hawkins Day. I promise.
Yeah. But that was a lot to get through in 2 sessions.
Now you see.
I took 16 hours worth of stuff and broke it down into about an hour and a half.
Yeah, next time you won't give me such a hard time when you leave me hanging. So
don't count on it. Don't count on it.
Well, alrighty then. So that's enough of David, I know, for today. But there's a lot of information there. And yes, these are things that we have covered before, but it's just like everything else. You hear the same thing 15 times, but maybe on the 15th time, it gives you new information because it triggers some, idea that's never been there before. So it's important to keep that going, and training. Can't say enough. Say enough.
Sometimes you just need a reminder. I mean, how many times is it like, oh, I knew that and I knew to do that, but I heard somebody else say it and I'm like, oh no, yeah.
Oh, crap. All right. So that's our show for today. And we thank you for listening all the way through if you made it this far. If you would be so kind to review us on iTunes, be nice about it. Share us on social media. You can always visit us on the web at helpmewithhipaa.com and leave us a question. We'll be happy to feature it on a podcast episode. But most of all, remember, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.